Most sellers think they're ready. The house is clean. It looks good. They've even done a few updates, and they feel like they've checked all the boxes. But then the home hits the market, and something doesn't go the way they expected. Not because they didn't prepare, but because they missed something they didn't even know to look for. And the problem is, you usually don't find out what that was until you're already under contract. And now you're trying to deal with it when the contract is on the line. And this is where I see a lot of sellers get tripped up, because preparing your home for sale isn't just about how it looks. It's about what a buyer might question and what could come up later. Part 1, the checklist trap. And this is what I see catches sellers in the Denver Metro off guard. Because when you start thinking about prepping your home for sale, most people go straight to the obvious things. Cleaning, decluttering, and maybe doing some staging. And don't get me wrong, those things are absolutely important, but that's not where the problems usually come from, because I've worked with sellers who did all of that. The home looked great. It showed well. Buyers loved it. And we still ran into issues, not because they didn't prepare, but because they prepared for how the home would look, not how it would be questioned. And that's a very different mindset, because once a buyer walks into your home, they're not just noticing how it feels and how it looks. They're quietly asking themselves what's been maintained, what might need to be replaced, and what could come up later. And if those questions start stacking up, even if the home looks great, that's where the hesitation starts. And hesitation is what slows things down, changes how offers come in, or in some cases, it could keep offers from coming in at all. Part 2, what they miss. And this is where the real issues usually start to show up. It's not the obvious things. It's the things that have just been there for a while. Things that still work, but maybe not as well as they used to. Things you've gotten used to because, well, you've lived with them day in and day out. But buyers walk into your home for the first time and they're seeing everything with fresh eyes. They're noticing things you don't even think about anymore. The age of the furnace, the condition of the windows, that small hole in the screen door, the small repairs that were never urgent. And none of those things on their own feel like a big deal. But when they start to stack up, that's when buyers start to hesitate. And sometimes they don't say anything right away. They just step back and move on to the next house, or they write a more cautious offer. And this is the part that most sellers just never see happen. Because from their perspective, the house looks great. It's clean, it shows well, so it should be fine. But what's happening behind the scenes is the buyer's starting to build a picture in their mind of what this home might actually cost them after they buy it. Or worse, they wonder, what are they missing that might come up later? And that's where those small things start to feel bigger. Not because they're huge problems, but because they're unknown. And the unknowns are what make the buyer hesitate. So this is where the shift happens. From preparing your home to look good to preparing your home to hold up under scrutiny. And that's a very different level of preparation. Part 3, what smart sellers do differently. And this is where the approach starts to shift a little bit, because at this point it's not about trying to fix everything. It's about getting knowledge and then deciding what actually matters, and more importantly, how do you want to handle it when or if it comes up, because every home is going to have something. The goal isn't perfection, it's being prepared. So instead of just asking, what do I need to do to get my home ready? A better question becomes, what could a buyer question in my home, and how do I want to deal with it when it comes up to prevent it from becoming an issue? And this is where you might want to consider a pre-listing inspection. Should you do one, or should you wait and have the buyer do theirs? And the answer is, it depends, because a pre-listing inspection can be really helpful. It can bring things to the surface early, giving you time to think things through and help you decide what you want to do, what you want to address before you're under pressure. But it also means once you know something, you now have to deal with it. Yet you can't unknow it, and in most cases, you'll need to disclose it. So it's not just about getting more information, it's about what are you going to do with that information? And that's where strategy comes in, because sometimes it makes sense to fix something ahead of time. Sometimes it makes more sense to price for it or plan for it in negotiations. And sometimes it's simply about being aware of it so you're not caught off guard if or when it comes up. Because when you've already thought through these things, you're not trying to figure it out in the middle of a contract when the timeline is tight and the stakes are higher. You get to make decisions from a place of clarity instead of pressure. So if you're starting to think about selling and you want to avoid being in that position where you're figuring things out under pressure, this is where taking a little time at the front end really pays off. I recently put together a blog that walks through this in a little more detail, including how to think through what to fix, what not to fix, and how to approach it before you list. I'll link that down below so you can take a look when you're ready. Oh, and if we haven't met, hi, I'm Peggy Durstoff. I'm a realtor with Live Denver Suburbs, powered by HomeSmart, and I specialize in helping women over 50 make smart real estate moves without pressure and without regret, especially when you're doing it alone. Now, if you're thinking about selling, watch this video next. This is where I find a lot of sellers get caught by surprise. I'll see you over there.